Hi, thank you for watching. We're going to continue now part 3 of Tanya Chapter 26, which was discussing the idea of happiness and sadness. The last thing we were saying was that in order to get to this higher level of happiness, which he called a true happiness, whatever that means, a genuine happiness, the higher level that comes from inside a person, not just when something good happens. In order to get to that real happiness, that superior emotion only comes through being able to first feel this deep sadness in the appropriate time and context. And that itself is a really important lesson worth briefly reflecting on, because that's a concept. There's an idea that if you're close when you should be far, you'll be far when you should be close, meaning we don't naturally feel, we don't always feel naturally what we know we should be feeling. You can have an extreme example of somebody at a funeral, and that's the time that obviously it should hit a person like, wait a second, life is so fragile. 1 minute we're here, one minute we're not. There are times you can see people suffering, you need to be empathetic, and the person just knows that they should feel a certain way, but they don't. And you can have the opposite extreme where you should be really happy about something that happened, but your heart is just blocked and you just feel kind of like cold or not necessarily in a good mood. So you have all these scenarios where you can't really experience what you should or what you see is the right thing to experience, and you want to get to that emotion, but that takes some work. And one of the things he's saying here is that you have these two extreme emotions, but you can't get to the higher extreme if you can't first feel the lower, apparently negative emotion. So if you don't know how to cry, you won't really be able to laugh, type of thing. And that is something worth examining, which we're not going to dwell on here, but it is worth thinking about. Another way of saying this is every emotion has its place, or almost every emotion. So there are some systems that don't give any room for legitimate deep sadness. And there are other systems that maybe overdo the self-analysis and introspection and negative emotion. So here it's saying everything has its place, and if you're able to legitimately experience something in one context, that will take you to another level in a different context. So that's just the contrast between sadness and happiness. But like we said before, there are some emotions that are never good, meaning it has no place. And that's the general system here. You have three different categories in general, whether you're talking about morals, emotions, objects. There are things that are inherently negative and they absolutely have no place. If you encounter them, the objective is to push those away. There are other things that are pure holiness, like that emotion is always good, or that object is naturally sanctified. And then the majority of what we encounter is neutral. So that means that I have to know what to do with it. It could go in a great direction or it could be destructive, depending on the person's free choice and how they use it. So in the realm of emotions, what I'm experiencing inside, you have this type of sadness, depression, terrible emotion, which just takes a person totally off course, and you have to do whatever you can to rid yourself of it. But then you have the sadness that, if you utilize it correctly, can be really great for a person because it can take you to experience a joy that comes after the sadness, and that's what we're talking about here. So let's look closer at the way he explains it. And what he says here is that through this broken heart and this sense of bitterness, of regret, you are able to accomplish something. And what is that? Sha'al yedei zeh, through this. And again, what is the sadness we're talking about? It's not a sadness based on something that happened that you don't like. Somebody insulted you, you went through something that came from the outside. This is something that where a person has regrets. I guess in any area where someone is determined to improve and grow, there are always times where a person falls short of their own standards and expectations, be it in a marriage or in, let's say, their performance and relationship in the spiritual arena with God, like you gave into a temptation, you feel guilty about that, or you acted unethically in a business context, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you always evaluate your performance. So in this spiritual system, there's a lot of evaluation going on. There's a lot of joy recommended, but there's a lot of analysis. Like there are some spiritual systems where it's all good, like I'm just happy with myself and we're all children of God, and whatever I do that's wrong, well, God will forgive me, and that regret and pain is short-lived, and so you're off the hook easily. But then there are legitimate disciplines that a person has, whether they want to be the best artist, they want to be the best spouse, they want to be the best parent, and there are areas in life that we are quote unquote performing, and especially in the athletic field, you see with people that are champions, they don't take losing lightly, and when they make mistakes, they're hard on themselves, but then they feel that pain and they move on with it. So here, in a relationship with God, just like in another relationship, a person failed. And that's the type of sadness we're talking about here, where at the end of the day, if you reflect on certain choices that you make relative to yourself, like the real test or improvement is not how you're doing in relation to other people. The real analysis is how am I with my choices relative to what I was 6 months ago or a year ago. And sometimes you can measure your improvement. You see, I would be in the same situation now and do things differently, and then I do and I execute, and that's a test of growth. But this is a period of reflection. A person feels bad, and at that moment of feeling bad, you have this broken heart, or this regret, or this bitterness, he calls it. So it's a powerful emotion that stings, and you channel that emotion, and through that, Al Yedei Nishbar Ruach Tuma, this impure energy that was kind of attached to the person, V'sitra Achra, and the opposite of holiness, Umachitza Shel Barzel, this iron gate that is blocking, impeding, separating, Amapsekas Benai La'aviv Shebashamayim, between him and his Father in heaven. So there's something on your heart that is a result of the past that is interfering in your connection with God. And through the sadness, you're able to break this. Kamoisha Kasov B'Zayar, like the Zayar brings a support for this in a well-known psalm written by King David in Psalms. It says, there's this verse, Ruach Nishbar, Lev Nishbar, a broken heart and a spirit, a sense of regret, that feeling of sadness is what I desire. So this verse is always distorted in other contexts, but here it's talking simply that God wants you to feel bad for what you did. Or there's some benefit. But in that same psalm, there is also a verse that says that Tashmieni sasain v'simcha, let me know and hear gladness. Let me feel happy. Show me that like uplifted spirit. So the Zohar says these two are interconnected. If you're able to feel the brokenness when you should, then you'll be able to reach that elevated state. It's like a springboard. It's like you can't get to that higher, lighter happiness if you aren't able to feel that genuine regret when you should. And that's just the support for the concept that we're talking about. And next time we'll continue with looking at something that the famous Kabbalist Arizal used to do in relation to this idea, these two extreme emotions, what he used to do every night in order to be able to learn and reach a state of really studying with joy. Thank you for watching and have a great day.